Welcome to Hispanic Biz Success Stories. I'm Homero Galicia. We're fortunate to interview business owners who are building and have built good businesses, to learn from them, their stories, their struggles, hoping that you will enjoy these stories. Today we're fortunate to have with us Mr. Ulrich de la Fuente of TWFG, de la Fuente Insurance Services. Mr. de la Fuente, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me here, Homero. It's a pleasure.
So, Mr. de la Fuente, what kind of insurance company is TWFG de la Fuente?
So our specific brokerage is an insurance broker. So we are, individuals can call us an insurance broker, an independent agency. That's more of the terminology we use, where we have relationships with multiple carriers to provide options to our clients. And we can handle both personal lines, commercial lines, life and health, whether it's personal and commercial.
And how long have you been doing this?
So in the insurance industry as a whole, I have been doing this since 2011, so a little over 11 years.
And you have a partner?
Yes, my father is a co-owner of our agency, so we are in business together.
And he's been in business for?
So this particular agency with me, we've been doing this since January of 2019.
But before that, your father was doing insurance?
No, actually.
Oh, really?
So he obtained his insurance license at the end of 2017 and was interested in joining the industry. And so I directed him to a different avenue. So at the time, to kind of put it in perspective, I was a farmer's agent. I was recruited to be a farmer's agent in 2011. And he and I had shared a lot of discussions about how business was going, the freedom of the schedule, those sorts of things. And he's always been in sales. He's always been good at sales positions. And so when he expressed interest, I kind of tried to guide him, not to steer him away from doing business with me. That was his initial intention, but I let him know at the time, hey, I'm only able to provide clients one or two flavors of the ice cream, when you can have access to a lot of flavors of ice cream and be able to serve a lot more people. So I directed him sort of in a different path, where he started sort of as an apprentice, or as what they call a mentee, in a friend of mine's agency that was also a TWFG branch agency. So that's kind of where he started, and as I started gauging the end of my time with farmers, that's when we decided to join forces and put it together.
Wow, that's nice. So you get to work with your dad.
Yeah.
Or he gets to work with you.
I think it goes both ways. I really do enjoy working with him. I learn a lot from him. He shares a lot of wisdom or different points of view on things that I wouldn't consider initially if it was just me. I will say that it's, especially early on, it was a challenge to learn to share those important decisions with someone else versus being able to just make the call myself. So.
What is TWFG?
So TWFG stands for the Woodlands Financial Group. And that's just the name of the agency and the brokerage that started in the Woodlands area of Houston, Texas. And so they are what the terminology for it is a managing general agency, or a cluster. Depending on if you're in the insurance world or not, you might not know what those words mean. But basically, they are the gateway for us branch agencies to have access to the carrier relationships that they have already created, to allow us to serve our clients in our prospective areas or in the states that we are licensed and set up to
But
sell.
you own your own agency.
That is correct. So there is a contract between us and them. There is a split of revenue, but we are 100% 1099. We pretty much run our own business. There are some compliance things we have to follow, sort of like a franchise, if you will, but not quite. But yeah, that's basically how we operate.
And so, so you started with farmers.
That's correct.
And you were with farmers for how long?
So from the summer of 2011 till the last day of December of 2018.
What did you learn?
Ooh, that was a good question. Learned a lot. So summer of 2011, I was just coming out of college. and I was eager to get into the workforce. I had graduated with the bachelor's in computer information systems, so I had a CIS degree, but I was at the university I was at because I was recruited also from an athletic standpoint. I went to a small Division III school, Paternal University, and so my focus wasn't much on what certifications or things I should probably be getting in order to successfully enter the workforce. So getting out of college, interviewed a lot, was unsuccessful at getting jobs at the time, and so I started looking at other avenues, and the way I started with Farmers was they actually found me through a recruiting email. I had my resume posted on a website, and so what did I learn? I learned how to be a business owner from the day one, pretty much. I learned how to interact with people in a more professional sense, especially when you're trying to provide them a very valuable product and protection. I learned how to deal with people in various different ways. So whether they were our prospective clients, our current clients, or employees, or other other agency owners that were also in the same boat as me, whether they were younger or older, kind of learning the ropes of the industry and the business all together as one.
How do you gauge size in your industry, and where are you in that regard?
So typically, most agencies will base it off of their premium size. So, for example, our book of business is approximately 3.7 million, and that is, in essence, the annual premiums that clients pay with our agency. Some may base it off of number of clients. We decide not to really base it off of that, simply because one client can have lots of policies with us, whereas other agencies are built with smaller size clients but many more clients.
So are you mid-range?
I would say we're, from the independent side of things, we're a decent sized agency. We're at the cusp of those agencies that get to the larger sizes and they have larger teams. We have most of our specialties, but we become as a little bit of a generalist in a sense. And what that means basically is we'll try to help anyone and everyone, but we try to stick to 2 or 3 main things, especially on the commercial side of things. I would say we're a decent size.
Yeah. And in terms of your background, you were born in El Paso?
Born and raised, yeah.
And what schools did you go to?
So, let's see, I started elementary school years. I think I spent at least 1 or 2 years at St. Patrick's. And then from there, my parents moved me and my brother to a private school, El Paso Country Day School. I attended there until the end of my middle school years. And then I went on to Coronado High School, played on their tennis team, and then once I graduated, I was recruited to play tennis at Paternal University in Longview, Texas.
Paternal in Longview. Mm-hmm. How'd you like that experience?
It was an amazing 4 years. Had a lot of fun. Had a lot of challenges too. Learning how to handle things on my own, time management, my own health, to be able to perform on the tennis court as well as in the classroom. So, yeah, but it was fun. Still very good friends with a lot of my classmates.
So is there a relationship between what you do now and building a business and tennis?
Very much so.
Really?
I would say so. I'm an extremely competitive person.
Okay.
Playing high school and college athletics, you obviously, aside from the match play, where the real competitive side comes out, it stays with you even when you're in practice, with your teammates, going through the reps, the work that most people don't see or don't know that you go through in order to be at the level that you are on the court. So that translates well into business because, we're here talking about my business, and I'm sharing with you the things that, the disciplinary things, all the calls you have to make, all the no's you have to take in the business world, all of the failures you have to experience. So I think it translates this similarly. You have to do a lot of repetition, just like in business. It's hardly ever an overnight success. There's always a lot of work that comes to that success, and there's always a lot of failure that comes with it too. So I didn't win every match I played, and I had to lose to figure out what I was doing wrong and how to improve from there. Same as, you know, in business, you lose deals, you lose employees, you know, certain things happen, and you learn from them.
Wow. So tell me about your background, your mother, your father.
Yeah. Okay. So my parents, my dad was actually born and raised in Monterrey, Mexico, and my mom was born and raised, for the most part, in Mexico City. And my dad was not born in Monterrey. He was raised in Monterrey, but my father was born in actually Ithaca, New York. So my grandfather was giving a lecture or a presentation in that area, and that's where he was born. And so he was a U.S. citizen by birth, but he was raised in Monterrey, Mexico. My mom spent some time in Mexico City and also Germany. My grandfather on my mom's side is from Germany, part of the group of Germans that fled from Germany to Mexico, and that's where they built the rest of their life. My parents actually met through my aunt was good friends with one of my other aunts on my dad's side, and so they were all together on a train, and that's how my parents first met actually in Mexico City.
Oh, really interesting.
Yes,
that's interesting.
Yes,
and they came to El Paso after a while.
Yes, and so my dad, both of my parents actually, they both came over because my dad decided to serve in the military. So he was actually stationed here in Fort Bliss for his 4 or 5 years that he served, and those were the only years that he served. But obviously, due to marrying my mom, that's how she became a U.S. citizen and pretty much built a life here in El Paso.
So, and you have a brother?
I have one brother. He's almost 3 years younger than me, and he currently lives in Dallas, Texas.
And what does he do?
And so he currently is the head of business development for a boutique consulting firm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So were you raised in Spanish?
At home, yes. And so even though as kids we didn't really enjoy it sometimes, you know, go to school, everything is in English, come back home, parents are only speaking Spanish. You could probably guess the different arguments that might have came up. Some of those would include like, hey, this is America, we speak English, you know, but I'm very glad that my parents raised me that way, because I wouldn't know the Spanish I know today if it wasn't for them. But yeah, only Spanish at home, even to this day.
Wow. Did your parents use a lot of dichos? Did they?
Dichos, yes and no. I can't think of any off the top of my head right now. I know there was some. It was more funny ones or joking ones. I think a lot of what they taught me when it comes to like life lessons or work lessons were more translatable to the sayings that I know really well in English today. But yeah, I'm sure there was some here and there. I can't think off the top of my head.
Yeah. But your mother's in business too.
My mom is in business.
What is your mom's name, and what does she do?
So my mom's name is Karin de la Fuente, and she runs a speech therapy clinic. It's called El Paso Speech and Language Service Excellence of El Paso. She actually opened her business the same year that I started with Farmers, so 2011. So she's been doing it for about 11 years.
And so is she a speech pathologist?
That's exactly what she is, and she has a staff of 7 now. But at one point it was up to 11.
Wow. Well, that's a needed service.
Most definitely, yeah.
So she has a heart for that.
She has a huge passion. She's done a lot of service projects. She's done some cleft palate clinics in South America. She's even traveled down there once or twice to help with some projects out there. I believe to this day, if I remember correctly, she still does a cleft palate clinic every Tuesday, which is volunteered time. She does that through Zoom, so those are for some of those countries that don't have that kind of support where they're at. But yes, she's very passionate, and she works very hard. So
what did you learn from your mom?
I think the number one thing I would say from my mom is the hard work. I mean, she not that I never saw it in my dad. My dad's a hard worker as well. I just obviously growing up, she was the one that was always out working all the time. I remember at times when, let's say, me and my brother had off of school or something, we would actually spend it with my mom at her place of work, sometimes doing crazy things and terrorizing her. But more than anything, you know, I got to see a lot of what she did and how hard she worked and the people she still works hard to help today.
What did you learn from your dad?
So my dad, I would say a lot of it is, you know, confidence, sticking to your gut, making sure that, you know, the decision that you are going to make, you're committed to making, and you're going to stick to your word, whatever it is you say or you share with someone.
How did they make that come out?
How did they make that come out? Well, I was obviously taught a lot not to lie when I was a child, but more than anything, you know, I saw it. I saw it actually happen. You know, when my dad would commit to something, he would tell us that we were going to do something, promise something. It always happened. And it was funny because when we were young, we would joke. He would joke with us. Well, we thought he was serious, but he was joking with us, and he would always tell us, like, "I'm Superman. I know everything." You know, that sort of thing. Those were some of those dichos, right?
Yeah.
That he would say, and it's because whatever he said was going to happen somehow would happen, and then of course once he made this decision, good luck trying to change it.
Okay.
You know, so you can call that stubbornness, but I think it's also comes with, you know, hey, if you really do believe in something and you're going to decide to do something, or you're taking a certain position, you're not gonna change it just because of peer pressure or you know, someone else's beliefs.
So you were raised with a lot of confidence.
I believe so. I would like to say.
And
so.
then being in tennis, of course, that
Yeah.
you know. So if your mother is passionate about her work, are you passionate about insurance?
Most definitely.
How?
Well, if we got into really detailed conversations, I could probably talk about it all day. But on the surface, you know, I really just like the reactions that we can get from our clients in proving to them that, you know, we're not just every other insurance agency that's out there. You know, it's not a surprise that we have a high number of, you know, 5-star, 4-star Google reviews because we have raving fans as clients. And I think that is the biggest thing that I get from what we do, aside from the value of what we are actually doing for them, is it's the people, it's the connection, it's the relationships that we develop. I think that's what really developed my passion for this. When I first started, you could say I just saw dollar signs and I just saw a great presentation and a way to kind of do something to call my own. But as time has gone on, a lot of that really comes with the true passion in doing the best for someone else.
So did you always have that to do something on your own? Was that always in you?
I don't know. It's hard for me to say a solid yes or no. I've always been a pretty good self-starter, but I also like a good set of directions. You know, I mean, you put me in the kitchen and you want me to make some dinner, I'm gonna be asking my wife for directions, just because I would prefer that. But if that's the only option, then yeah, we find a way. You know, we might not do it perfectly. We might make some mistakes. So I think that's been a little bit a part of me. But I think what really pushed me was that, you know, I signed on the dotted line on a contract with Farmers, and I knew for at least the next 2 years I was tied to them and what I was going to do business-wise. And I learned a lot of hard lessons, but a lot of good lessons during those first 2 years that kind of pushed me to be more passionate about how can I be better at this.
You're married.
I am.
And you have children.
I have 3 children. So I have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 3-month-old. So my oldest is Eliseo Ulises de la Fuente, so we kind of gave him a middle name close to mine. Maximiliano Lázaro de la Fuente, and then Luciana Amelia de la Fuente.
Oh, beautiful names.
Yeah.
And your wife, is she from here?
My wife, April de la Fuente, she is from here, born and raised. She actually graduated from UTEP, and we met in high school originally. So that's kind of how our connection started. But it really got stronger during our college years, actually talking long distance through Facebook was new at the time, you know, 2008. MySpace, Facebook days, that's how our kind of relationship at least sort of bloomed. And then, of course, when we got together in person, we decided to really commit to each other from then on. So we have been married for, it will be 10 years this year.
Ah, fantastic. That's great. That's great. Well, one of the things about about insurance is it can just be a selling operation, but you're building a business. What's the difference between?
That's an interesting comparison you make there, because if we get to the straight business side of it, we truly are a sales organization. I would say any successful business, whether they're selling tangible or intangible products, is a sales organization. But the word sale or selling is not necessarily always comes with the best connotations, because of how some businesses have portrayed it to be in their interactions with the client. For example, we have to make the continual sale to our client, for lack of better words, simply because just because we take your first payment, we set you up on auto pay, you're taken care of on your business, your insurance, whatever it may be, right? That's it, we're done. No, I mean, things happen along the way, your life changes, your business changes, and so we have to really get to know that person, and that's how you truly build a business. The sales is important. You can't build a business without the sales, but the relationship along the way in the long term is what makes the difference, and what truly makes that person feel like they've never really been sold. They were actually helped to begin with, and they continue to be helped by someone that they know, like, and trust day in and day out.
You know, my work as a business coach is interesting because there's a book on the inner game of tennis that I like a lot, and he talks about tennis players would want somebody to tell them what to do to clean up their mistakes, and he said, no, you tell me what you need to do, kind of, and they would have to find it. Well, in your business, who tells you what to do? How do you build your business?
So, early on, it was more of just, how do I do what I got to do to pay the bills? Yeah. I mean, so when it comes to doing what I got to do, that was a time when I didn't have kids, was just about to be or newly married. So the life's hurdles were a lot less at that time from the personal standpoint, so I could pour more into the business in learning through failures, learning through long, hard days of just trial and error, not just talking to people and trying to sell, but really the logistical side of business. And so, obviously the quick answer is, who tells me what to do? Well, myself. But where did I learn all of that? Whether it was me, myself, or through others, their influence, my parents, other agency owners. I actually had a business coach for a couple years as well. Learned a lot from them, and kind of grown and implemented further from those points that I've learned, not just from the coach, but I read a lot. I try to read at a bare minimum 10 to 15 pages a day, sometimes more, especially with interesting books. So to answer your question subtly, I'm the one that tells me what to do, but all of that comes from the experience and what I've done prior to that, or what others have done prior to help influence me.
And what kind of books do you like to read?
So mainly self-help, like self-development books, business-based books. Like right now, I'm reading The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F. That's really the actual title of the book. But it's a book about trying to live a better life. How to really enjoy life. A couple books before that, like right now, one that's on my bookshelf that I'll be reading next is Start with the Why by Simon Sinek. So I'm really excited to jump into that one next.
Yeah.
But a lot of books along those lines.
Yeah.
I've read The E-Myth, another great book about business processes and development. So.
Yeah, I use that E-Myth in my class.
It's a great book.
And then I share the Simon Sinek's how to get leaders to lead, something like that. Good
He's
stuff.
got some great talks, yeah.
Good stuff, but it's the why. The why. Why? So why? The why. Well, that's important. Why? Why do you do what you do?
Well, that has changed obviously over the years as my life has changed. Today, the simple answer would be for my family. I run a business that allows me the flexibility to be there for the many things that can happen in my child's and my wife's lives. I can be available. That's number one for me. But back when I first started, I as I told you, I was a young kid. My why was, I want to do this. I want to own a business. I want to make good money. I want to be able to pay my bills comfortably. Those were my whys at the time, until I started to realize that it's obviously a lot more than that. And it's even a lot more than just me. It's, for others. How do others portray not just me, but the team that works with us? They are extensions of us and our agency. And so for me, the why is, how is our agency portrayed, whether it's through a client or a non-client, but someone that has interacted with our agency. The why is we want to be able to reverberate that integrity and honesty amongst anybody that we interact with. That that we're doing good work, even though it is a sale of an intangible product. It's what we're doing to try to communicate that value to our
How do you clients. Communicate integrity?
How do you communicate integrity? We're straight shooters, all of us. I mean, in our agency, and I say all of us, including my dad was number one, obviously. He's one of those guys, he's not even going to tiptoe around anything, and he will not paint a pretty picture. He's just going to tell it how it is. And so I got a lot of that from him, but I also make sure that my people know how to eloquently share that with clients, because too many people want to avoid that that interaction or that confrontation, but sometimes it's necessary to move past that pain point, whatever it may be. For example, oh, this happened with your account, this happened with the billing, or this might not be covered because even though we discussed this, you decided to do this, and hitting it straight on rather than going around. And I think a lot of our clients really appreciate that. Some people, might react negatively to that, and that's okay, but they know in the end we're just trying to act in truth and in honesty and working with them, because whether they come back or not, we want them to know that when they're dealing with us, they got only the truth from us.
So you balance family and business.
It's a tough thing to do, yes. But yes.
So do you wake up at 3 a.m. with things in your mind?
Yes and no. Sometimes it's my kids waking me up at that time. Yeah. But sometimes it's just the hustle and bustle of business and life. I wake up early to kind of get my mind straight, my body straight for the rest of the day, so that I can serve not just my family, but my clients well, for that day.
So you know your clients very well.
Yeah. Try to develop good relationships with all of them. I can't say I personally know all of them, but if it's not me, it's someone on my team that has that relationship with them.
And over the years, you've just maintained that.
That's the name of the game.
That's fantastic. So you started with farmers.
Farmers, yeah.
And how long were you with farmers?
So from about mid 2011 till the end of 2018. So close to 7 years.
Yeah, I was familiar with some farmers agents for a while, and I correct me if I'm off here, but I saw that they teach you to sell insurance, but I don't know if they teach you to build a business.
Most definitely not. That is pretty accurate.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I learned from them, right, was the insurance side. But when it came to filing taxes and bookkeeping, things like that, oh yeah, I learned a lot of things the hard way, but I also learned on my own, which kind of helped me be where I'm at today.
Let's talk about that, but let me first. I met you through BNI networking group. You're very active. You have a title, don't you, as a volunteer?
Yeah. So I've been active with BNI since 2016, so about 6 years. And currently, I work with the region as a regional director consultant. So that allows me a little bit better access to members throughout our entire region. We have multiple chapters here. To just best help our members have the best BNI experience possible and maximize their input.
You do trainings?
Do trainings. We can do one-on-one meetings with our members, but we also have a team. We have an ambassador regional team that we work with to try to obviously permeate that a little bit better throughout our region.
I was talking with you a little earlier, and you were telling me that you just did a training in Spanish.
I did.
For a Spanish BNI group that started.
That's correct.
How did that go?
It went well. It was a challenge. You know, the dialect and the things that you want to say business-wise in that sense when it comes to, you know, training or telling people how to network in Spanish is not something that I do every day. So, yeah, it was kind of a learning experience, but it was a good one. I was lucky that the chapter was very supportive of the training and how we did certain things, and so yeah.
Even though you grew up in a Spanish-speaking home.
That's correct. Yeah. So a lot of I use a lot of slang Spanish terms versus maybe the proper words to use in certain circumstances, and so learning those proper things either on the fly or you know, early on was the challenge.
And you were sharing that your father's your partner.
My father, yes.
And your mother has her own business.
That's right. She runs a speech therapy clinic. Karin, my dad Ed, current partner with me in my business.
So what is it like building a business and having a father as a partner? What's that like?
So what's it like? A lot of people that I have spoken to feel like it would be tough, very difficult. And although if we were probably doing something else other than insurance, maybe it might be, but also me and my dad see a lot of things the same way. We're very straight shooters, cut to the chase type people. You know, if something makes sense, whether it's numbers, people, circumstances, whatnot, then we just kind of move with that. So it's not difficult to find either a middle ground with him on certain things, or to just either see his side or agree with my side, one or the other, and kind of move forward as we try to grow our business.
What is your strongest business trait?
Ooh, strongest business trait. So now you're asking me to brag about myself. I would say that, you know, I have a good sense of understanding how we can build a relationship with someone who doesn't really know who I am, what I stand for, or how I'm going to be able to provide them value. I think that to me is one of the things that kind of naturally developed on my own, but it's one of my strong suits. I work on the one thing that's maybe not so strong for me, which is the opposite side of things, which is you know, the people that work with me, how to best understand them and help them so that they can help our business grow.
That's interesting. How do you see that distinction?
So the distinction is different because, well, it's not so different, but I thought it was different early on, and I think that's what I struggled with was, you know, well, like we spoke a little bit off camera, I had a lack of processes in my business, and so I have these expectations of people that work with me, but no process to really show them how it should be done or developed, or not something that's repeatable. So they were constantly getting different sort of direction on a regular basis. Didn't make any sense to them. So how can I expect them to perform? Whereas from the customer point of view, I mean, it's just one thing. What do we want them to understand about what we're doing? And it's also a repeatable process, but it's one that I had perfected because I was mainly the sales person of the business. Being the sole entrepreneur that started my business, it was just me talking with you about your insurance, and that was it. I didn't really have anybody with me. So as the need for that started to happen, especially in my farmer's days, but even starting our TWFG agency, it's like, how are we going to handle training? How are we going to handle our processes? And so that's something that I had to develop over time. Business coach helped me do that a lot as well for about 2 or 3 years. And then I've kind of just built up on that and kind of modernized it in a way that works best for me and the people that we try to hire.
So you broke away from farmers. Why?
So think about this. If you walk into an ice cream store and they've got 1, maybe 2 flavors, and it's not one of the flavors that you like, chances are you're not going to buy from that store. You're going to go to the, you know, Baskin Robbins or whoever has all the flavors that are going to be able to accommodate the ones that you want. With insurance, it's kind of the same thing, similar analogy. I only had 1 or 2 flavors of the insurance that I was selling, whether it was auto insurance, home insurance, business insurance. And so, especially from the business side of things, but even from the personal side, having that relationship with someone and losing to someone who just has the options but doesn't really have the relationship that I do with them is what kind of started eating at me. And said, why can't I earn that person's business if I have the better relationship? Well, it's because my product just doesn't fit with them, whether it's price, coverage, whatever have you. So going independent or going with TWFG allowed us to provide those options that would not only make the client happy, but it would allow us to maintain that relationship.
So you're strong in building relationships.
I like to think so.
But you start your own agency, so really this is now building a business.
Correct.
So that was a different animal.
Yeah, most definitely.
What was your biggest shock?
Biggest shock, to be straight up with you, was filing my taxes.
Sure.
You start making money, and you just think, especially coming with no instruction. I didn't have a CPA actually. I went with the person that my parents were working with, which at the time, we were starting to learn, was not an actual CPA. They were just a registered, tax preparer. Great person, decent advice, but maybe not the best because that's just not their forte. And so, I just thought I could just write things off and try to save on taxes and pay as little as possible. But when you start getting into those larger tax bills, it's like, all right, what do I got to do, or what's going on? How could I leverage what I am making better to not have to pay the IRS so much?
So you learned real quick.
That was probably one of my things where to start to pay for the right advice. So I have a CPA now we've had for many years, and that understands we pay good money for those services, but they also do good for us.
And you've learned your numbers.
That's correct.
So what's the value of having your father right there with you?
I think one of the biggest things, especially since I had more of the insurance business experience than he did, was more of just the overall general wisdom of just being. Well, he helps my mom run her speech clinic as well, but just different approaches to the same problem. I think it was the biggest thing that I'm very blessed to have him around is that, I would have done something one way because that's just the way I think, and he kind of opens up my mind to just any other perspective that I might not have thought of. And sometimes it's the other way around too with him, but definitely that's what I'm more thankful for is, and having him around, I have someone to not just tell me whether I think I'm doing something right or wrong, but rather give me different perspectives to consider problems or situations.
So what are the challenges you're facing now?
So I kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier lightly is, especially starting with farmers, doing everything by myself. I didn't really, talk to my parents much about running my business because, it was my business. You have this kind of sense of pride and ownership where it's like, I know what I'm doing. You don't have an insurance license. You can't really help me. So that sort of thing. Even though I didn't really think that way, I didn't really ask them much. So for me, a lot of it was learning it on my own. And I think the biggest thing that I started to run into was as I grew and needed other people's help, hiring and training and having, proper processes in place where finding the right skills in someone and being able to plug them into the right place was something I just had no clue how to do. And so it cost me a lot of overhead at the time for a couple years. At one point with farmers, I had a staff of 5, and that book was never even half the size of our book now with less people. We have 4 people currently. So I think what makes the difference now is we have well built-in processes.
Well, why are processes important?
Processes are important because especially in our business and a lot of sales businesses and a lot of businesses in general is that there are certain things that you do every single day that are exactly the same. It's a repeatable process. And for some individuals, it just takes multiple times going through that process to understand it, or to learn it, or to get the hang of it and be good at it. And so what I was losing a lot of time and money on with farmers was that I did not have actual processes. Just be like, hey, I need you to do this, and if you have any questions, come to me. So very fly by the mill, very just like, hey, we'll tackle it as it comes. But then, of course, sometimes that stuff comes to be too much, and there's not enough time in the day. Whereas if I had a process, for example, now what we do a lot of when it's possible is we have a recording, or we have, I was hired at T-Mobile for 6 months. They had training videos my first day. That's all I did the first day. But by the end of those first couple days, I knew I had a general sense of what their processes were, and then from there was just doing it to understand it. So I started to build a training library for our agency and different things, because a lot of what we do is on software. And so those processes came out in video form, just like the big corporations do it. And when we started implementing that, it was much easier for our staff to pick up certain things, understand it before they even do it. And then once they start doing it, it just makes total sense, because they know why they're doing it, they know what they're doing, and what the end result should be.
Yeah, and if you don't have processes, you operate out of chaos,
Exactly.
and nobody's happy.
I was doing that for years. So.
But you picked up a coach to help you.
I did.
And the other thing is you did learn at Farmers. What did you learn at Farmers?
So at Farmers, there was certain stickler, I guess, ways of doing certain things, whether I learned them from other agents or from my district office, that they felt like I should implement. And I did to the best of my abilities and my extent, whether it was a sales process or whether it was the way we kind of market our agency to grow our business. I'm going to tell you, in my time as a Farmers agent, I've never spent so much on overhead compared to what we do now to not get nearly as far. And maybe that was also me just learning, whereas now I have a lot more knowledge. But Farmers taught me a lot of those different things, but what they didn't teach me was how to create those repeatable processes, right? A lot of what I got was just, hey, why don't you talk to this agent, he's successful in what he's doing, try to learn from him. But I didn't know the questions to ask. So I could ask some questions, but I didn't get very far with that.
So then what'd you do to?
So obviously, I was, this was around a point in time, about 3 or 4 years in, where I realized, okay, I've got 5 people working here. I'm hardly taking anything home aside from what, I might be paying myself on a small salary. So how can we improve this? This is obviously not the business owner life. Not only be making like tons of money, but something wasn't working. I had more staff than some people who had much larger agencies than me that were farmers, okay? And so I was obviously doing something wrong. So I decided to pay even more money overhead-wise and invest in a coach. And I say invest because it was one of the best investments I made during my time as a farmer's agent. That when I brought her in, so this is Rebecca Lacalci, and she had already had some experience coaching other agents and some successes that I could draw from. So that's why I decided to hire her. But more than anything, she was more understanding of where I was coming from, where I wanted to be, and what we needed to do to get there. And so she immediately started with the people's process, the one process I probably didn't have in my agency at all. And so everything from the pre-screening and on the hiring and how we handle those interactions with people to really find the right fits made a huge difference in bringing the right people on. And then from there, okay, we have what we think is the right person, but before even that, she helped me develop processes in the agency to plug those people in. Hey, you're going to have this person do this, okay, but how are they going to know what to do? Do you have something recorded, written down, whatever it may be? And so just, kind of like my dad at this point in time, right? Having that other person to bounce those things off of helps a lot. And so that's what I learned with my coach was people processes, implementation and sales processes, and also servicing processes. So now everything that I see in my agency, especially of new things, it's like, do we have a process for this? No? Okay, we need to work on that. So that way, when we do need an extra person in that process, they already know what to do and how to do it, and why they're doing it more importantly than anything.
So when you started your business, was there a financial need that you had? How did you find the resources you needed?
How did I find the resources? So I was very thankful that, and this is probably why I started with Farmers, because I did my research and to see if any other carriers I could join, like Allstate, State Farm at the time, a couple others, had opportunities like Farmers, and they didn't. So that's why I started with Farmers. Their opportunity was, prior to signing an official contract with them, you needed to prove yourself that you could sell a certain amount of product in a certain amount of time. Once you get to that point, you get a contract where they subsidize you for the next 2 years. And that was the big difference of me doing this 100% full-time or having a job while trying to build this agency, right? So actually, those first couple months where I was proving myself to Farmers, I was working a part-time job. I was working at T-Mobile. I was doing cell phone sales and selling people cell phone plans and stuff, and also trying to talk to them about their insurance. So when I got to that point where I could sign that contract with Farmers, for the next 2 years, or for at least for the first 6 months for sure, I had a guaranteed base that they were going to pay me regardless of what my sales activity was. The catch was that after the 2 years, if you didn't hit certain sales numbers, it becomes a 0% loan. So I was kind of learning how to borrow money, but with an opportunity to not have to pay anything back early on. And I did excuse most of that money. They subsidized me at probably about $60K over a two-year span. And I only ended up having to pay about 20 back, so it was kind of nice.
So one of the things, because you're a tennis player, you still play tennis.
I still play.
But you played it in college. You played competitive. What is the relationship between, or is there a relationship between, in other words, when you're playing tennis, you're practicing a lot, and you play in a game very little. You're practicing a huge percentage compared to playing a game.
Yeah.
So you prepare.
Yes.
So was the Farmers experience preparation for you?
I mean, if you want to anecdotally put it that way, yeah. I mean, you could say that a lot of what I went through, trial, error, successes, and failures, all kind of prepared me for what me and my dad are doing today in our agency.
So are you still preparing?
Always preparing. I think it's a never-ending game, especially with, for those watching, you can probably agree with me that the insurance industry itself is one of the slowest changing industries in the business world. And so those who can pick up on those quick changes innovation-wise and just operational-wise are the agencies or the businesses that are going to make the biggest strides. If you're still, for example, and this is nothing against any other agencies out there, but I know that if we were still operating on just 100% paper, we would have a hard time doing what we do today, than the other way. So we're constantly preparing in the sense of learning where the industry is going, how can we best serve our clients there, and meet them where they want to be met.
Of course, you had an advantage. You were a CIS, you're a computer information systems graduate.
Yeah, it helps a little bit. I mean, it still has to be an intentional work. It's not like intuitively I know what's going on, and that's why when you ask, are you always preparing? Always preparing. Yeah, there's always going to be another challenge.
So what's the future?
So the future, right now we're actually in the process of trying to purchase a building, and so that's a big step for us since I've always been renting an office space since I started, and it's kind of nice when you don't have to pay someone else's rent. You can call it your own. But our goal is to continue our growth. Right now we've had a good year-over-year growth percentage-wise consistently. Our goal is, once we kind of move past this next business venture of purchasing a building, is to, because I'm also polishing more of our systems, is to plug more people into those systems to continue, being able to put me and my father where we really want to be business-wise and in our daily operations, and have those other individuals that are helping us to continue that mission and that growth.
So one of the things that's interesting is how you've developed with your experience. What would you advise to somebody? You've seen people build a business and struggle and get stuck in the growth phase. What would you say to people in building a business?
I would say one of my biggest things is to never give up. and that goes in combination with when you do approach or when you do encounter failure, look at it as an opportunity, because it's never really a failure unless you let it be one. So what do I mean by that? I had a point in time where I did encounter some financial issues or troubles when I was running my farmer's agency. Doing the transition, there were some other obstacles as well, where it could have been very easy for me to just say, you know what, I'm done with this, and let's move on to the next thing or look at something else that I can do. And I probably wouldn't be where I'm at today, or maybe as happy as I am. So I think the biggest thing I would say is to never give up, always look at challenges as opportunities, and it's important to learn from those obstacles as well. So if you're just kind of moving through it and luckily surviving, try to find where the lesson could have been learned in that.
So is it fair to say that you learn to execute instead of give excuses?
Oh, most definitely. Yeah. My wife might not agree with that. She still calls me a pretty big complainer, but always looking to improve. If I failed, if I lost a tennis match, if I lost a deal, if our business took a different financial turn, what did we do wrong? What could we have done better? And are we going to continue going? Well, that to me is not a question, but it's still a question for some others. We're going to keep going, and we're going to figure out what we did wrong, so that way next time we encounter something similar, we don't, or we can avoid it as much as possible.
So you analyze?
Always.
Is that natural with you, or did you have to develop that?
Yeah, that's something that obviously came up with my tribulations as a farmer's agent. It wasn't all gloom and doom. Obviously, I had a lot of successes as a farmer's agent, but I guess what I was being told was successes there is not what I'm seeing now, what potential success could be in my eyes, what I consider it to be. And so, I didn't really analyze my problems early on or what I could be doing better. I just felt it was, something that either had to happen or I could have avoided it entirely, and I complained early on, and now I don't.
How would you define that process?
I would say the first thing has to be acceptance or understanding. Knowing that whatever is about to happen or what's going to happen is maybe not necessarily progress; it's a setback. But how you react and go from there, especially if it's something that you can't control, right? If there were certain things you could have done that could have changed the outcome, great. Improve those for next time. And so, I guess your question about what I would call that. I would just say it's a process. It's just another one of those processes.
Would you say it's a process of constant improvement?
Constant improvement, and definitely one that can't really be accomplished without a positive attitude all the time.
And what do you say about personal growth as you grow the business? What's the relationship?
So I don't think that the business grows without the personal growth. Like I said, I read more now probably than I did in my schooling years. And that's just one of the things that I do to try to continue feeding my brain with the positive things that can help me grow as an individual, so I can help others grow either as individuals or with us.
Yeah, one of the things I like to say is you grow the person, you grow the business, right?
Yeah. If I don't have much to give, then I can't really do much else for anybody else. How do I give myself more? I got to fill myself up more.
Yeah, so you're constantly reaching for something, right? So how do you define success?
Success, I think, is individualistic to everyone. For me, my definition of success would be, to have not just a business, but a life that I can be proud of, and one that hopefully my wife and my kids can be proud of, whether it was something I did for them or for others throughout life. That's really important to me. But also, my clients. We always talk about our clients as family. If it wasn't for them and our employees as well, they're all our family. We try to treat them as such. I would want to build something that they're proud to be a part of, that they're proud to, support and to be connected with us in that way.
So you're really enjoying your journey?
Always, yeah. Wake up every day with a smile on my face.
And you wake up knowing that you're going to have challenges that day?
I expect them.
But you're not afraid?
No. Sometimes it can get stressful, yeah. But worrying only gets you so much. It only gets you to worrying more and thinking more. And thinking is important, but thinking positively is more important.
Well, I appreciate you sharing your story. I enjoy learning about your growth enthusiasm.
Thank you.
And I thank you for sharing, and I trust that our viewers enjoyed hearing the story of Ulrich de la Fuente of TWFG de la Fuente Insurance Services. Thank you for watching. Have a good day, and stay tuned to this program. We enjoy your watching. Have a great day. Thank you.